Hello gamers, this is Rushcode. Welcome back to UE4. We're working on the classroom game again some more. Today we're going to be looking at how to make a ticking timer, like a countdown clock. But before we get into that, I wanted to just quickly highlight something. So I couldn't figure out what was going on with these two bits in the last video because they were all the way in over here when you actually do the gameplay. But I worked out that if you want to get it into the corner properly, you need to anchor it on the correct side. So this anchor right here for this chair, it used to be all the way on this side here, and I changed it by just going into anchors and clicking the top right corner. So that was done for both of these, and now when we play you can see that in the top right corner of the screen the chair and score is in the right spot. So that's one thing, and the other thing I was going to do now is just fix the number of chairs that we would get every time you hit E. So at the moment, if you look at the chair score, when I hit E and create a chair, it goes up by 1, but if I hit E again, it goes up by 2, 3, 4, 5, and that'll be the end of the game, but we don't want it to be incrementing multiple times for the same table. So in order to fix that, let's do it now. We're going to open the table component, and so in this object, all we need to do is create a variable that informs us on whether the table has been filled with a chair or not. So we'll call this variable isFilled, compile, and now as soon as a chair is placed, based on the spawn actor chair thing, we need to inform the table variable over here that it has been filled. And I'm putting the variable in the table object just because it should be individual for every table. As we're increasing the number of chairs, we want to change the state of that current table. So let's see, we have as table here, so we want to grab that guy. So from the table, you want to get is filled, but you want to set the value. So we'll bring that all the way over here, and I think we should go in there first, and then from there we can go into increasing the number of chairs. It doesn't really matter which one you do first, so it's just easier for me to stick this in the middle here. And so we will set this to be true now, and over here we also want to check and see if it is filled before we even try to spawn a chair. So if it isn't filled yet, then we want to spawn a chair. So let's get is filled, do a branch node, hold B, left click. So we cast to the table, and then we check, is that table filled? And if it is true, then we don't want to spawn a chair. If it's false, then we spawn a chair, set the table to being filled, increment the number of chairs, and we're done with the loop. So what do we do when it's true? Well, probably not do anything because we don't have any chair to put there if it's already there. So if it's true, a bit like having a failed cast, we just don't do anything, we just leave it empty, and the loop will just skip over this table and check out any other nearby tables and do the same thing. Alright, so we'll compile and check and see if this works. So go up to this table, hit E, there's the chair, hit E again, and it does an increase, which is good. So that means this is not creating any more duplicates of the chair. So we can go here, make one here, and you won't double up by pressing it multiple times, and that creates all the chairs. Great. Coming back to the timer, we want to change this text so that it displays the minutes and seconds that are counting down or counting up. To keep things simple, I'm just going to create one that counts upwards from 0. So we're going to create a binding here. This will update the text as accordingly. So we want to get something like a format text. In here we will say something like, let's see, we want the minutes followed by the seconds. The minutes, it's preferred for it to be in 2 digits, so we'll also want a 2 text component for this, such that this will have minimum of 2 digits and maximum of 2 digits. Copy that node, just double check it's the same. Yep, 2 and 2. That'll feed into the seconds. So one of these will be for the minutes, one is for the seconds, and we need variables for that. Now I've done most of the coding inside the custom controller itself, but I think for minutes and seconds it's probably best to do it in the pawn, just because the time you start playing the challenge should be based on when you've taken control of the character. So in here, if we start with an event tick, we can create a delay, which is going to allow us to control how often this thing ticks over. So every second, we want this to update the seconds and potentially the minutes as well. And in order to do that, we're going to need two variables. I'll call this, let's see, time sec, and the other one will be time min for minutes. Let's change them to integers and compile. Okay, so they both have a default value of 0, which is fine. And what we want to do is bring these in. And from here, when a second is completed, we want to increment the time. We look for increment that will increase this second by 1. And then we want that to be set to the seconds again, updating its value to 1 second, 2 seconds, and so on and so forth. At some point, this will need to update the minutes as well. So when this hits 59 seconds, we don't want this to increase to 60. We want it to go back to 0. And we want that to happen before incrementing. So if we create a branch node over here and check to see if the seconds equal to, let's say, 59. If it does, then we don't want to increment that to 60 on the next count. We want it to update the seconds back down to 0. Otherwise, we would update it as usual, incrementing it step by step. So if it does end up being reset to 0, naturally, we need to increase the minutes by 1 as well. So let's increase this. So increment by 1. We're going to set the minutes to be based on that value, and that should happen after resetting the seconds to 0. Now to test this out, I don't want to wait a whole minute to see if this works, so I'm just going to change the seconds to 3 seconds, meaning after 3 seconds, at the 4th second, it should update the minutes to 1. So I'm going to compile this, go back to our score HUD, and over here, we want to pull in the minutes and seconds. Now this was based off the pawn object, so we want to cast to the pawn, pull out the seconds and minutes, plug those in, and this should work. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so we can see up there it's 3, 1, 2, 3, and then good. It updates to 1 minute after that, so another 3 seconds, and boom, 2 minutes. Great. So we can put this back to 59 seconds, and up here you can even create like a closed loop such that if it hits 99 minutes, we want this to end the game. That's like a default if you just left the game running, right? We don't want it to just keep going forever. So if we create a branch node over here, before we update the minutes, we want to check if the minutes are already at 99. So branching out from this, we want to check, is it equal to 99? And if it is, then we don't want to do any of this stuff. We only do this stuff if the minutes haven't reached 99 yet. If it has, then we want to trigger the end game sequence, which is in the custom controller, right? The, let's see, quit game. Okay, so I've not done this before. Let's see if this works. I need to cast to the custom control. And then from here, we want to grab the, let's see, we want to grab the quit game custom event. So as custom control, quit game. Okay, there we go. So that's the function there. We call it, and everything should take care of itself from there. Now to test this, we're just going to make the minutes 1. So when it hits 1, if it tries to increment up to 2, it will stop. That means, let's see, we need to change the seconds as well to a maximum of 3. So the most we'll see this go is 1 minute and 3 seconds technically. Let's see if that works. Okay, so we have 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 1 minute, 2, 1, 2, 3 seconds, and it should quit. There we go. Perfect. Okay, great. And we're just going to restart this again, and I'll just get a couple of chairs in to see if this updates according to the timer of that and all that. Fantastic. So we have 2 chairs done within a certain amount of time. And you can adjust that however you like if you're making a similar sort of game mechanic. And over here as well, you could display the amount of time taken to get as many chairs as you did. Let's go back to the score HUD. And no, this is the timer, which we've already completed. But if we go back to the quit game widget, we could change this. So if we just make a copy of this and bring that to the center, bring it down a little bit, that's going to be for our time. So do something like that for now. And we need to create a binding for this. So create binding. And from here, we need to get the minutes and seconds from the pawn character. Let's cast to my pawn, get player pawn as my pawn, get time minutes, get time seconds, and get that into a special text format, allowing you to always display a format with 2 digits. And then we put this into a format text, which we want to actually set up first. So let's do minutes, seconds. Oh, but we also want to show the entire text for this. So that's going to be the time there like that. And here we go. Minutes goes in here, seconds goes in here. Just like the other binding, just connect that up, compile, and this should reflect it once the game finishes. Put 1 chair here and see what that looks like. Okay, that looks a little bit different. That should be reflecting on 3 seconds, but I think it has something to do with the fact that that reset up there to 0. So let me try this again. I'll go really fast. If I can just get all the chairs in time. Okay, there we go. So 101, that is the actual time it takes, and that's reflected based on where the game paused at the end. So I hope that made sense to you guys. In the next video, we're going to be looking at randomizing which tables have chairs in them when you start the game. That way it always gives you a sense of not knowing which tables you need to go and fill, depending on which classroom you've set up in the actual map. And depending on which tables are filled in which classrooms, it will affect how long it takes for you to get a certain chair score. So in other words, we'll be looking at how to randomize some of the variables when we start the game every single time. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you liked it, smash like, hit subscribe, join the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Rush Code out!